There is a man buried in a small church in the middle of England. He died in 1616. He was 52 years old. In the 400 years since his death, his words have been translated into every major language on earth. His plays have been performed in every country. More films have been made from his work than from any other writer in human history. He was considered the greatest writer of his time while he was alive. He was successful. He made money. He was respected. This man wrote 37 plays, wrote 154 sonnets. He wrote about love and power, jealousy and grief, ambition and redemption, in a language so specific and so true that people are still finding themselves in it today. And then he retired, returned to his hometown and died. Then the world decided, slowly, over decades and then centuries, that what he had made was worth keeping forever. That man was William Shakespeare. And today, on day one of our ultimate birthday week, we are in the town where he was born, where he went to school, where he fell in love, where he was buried. Stratford-upon-Avon. Here's some context before I take you through the day. Shakespeare was born here in April 1564. His father was a glove maker and wool merchant. His mother was from landed family. He grew up in a timber-framed house on Henley Street that is still standing. He then went to the grammar school on Church Street. The same building is still here and still a working school. He married Anne Hathaway when he was 18 and she was 26. Together they had 3 children, and then at some point in his early 20s he left Stratford and went to London. There are 7 years of Shakespeare's life from around 1585 to 1592 that are almost completely undocumented. Historians call them the lost years. The most performed playwright in human history, and there's a 7-year window where nobody knows what he was doing. What we do know is that by 1592 he was in London and already working as a playwright. By 1594 he was a shareholder in one of the most successful theatre companies in the country, and by 1597 he was wealthy enough to buy the 2nd largest house in Stratford. He wrote Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello, King Lear, Romeo and Juliet, A Midsummer Night's Dream, The Tempest. 37 plays in roughly 20 years. In 1613 he stopped, came home. 3 years later he died, buried in the same church where he had been baptized 52 years before. This is the life. This is the town. Let me show you around. Shakespeare's birthplace is on Henley Street, and it's exactly what it sounds like. The house where he was born in April 1564 is still standing. You can walk through it.
Program, lovely, excellent.
Inside, it has been carefully restored to reflect a prosperous Tudor home. period furniture, low ceilings, rooms that feel both old and specific. This is the house where one of the most extraordinary minds in the history of language was a child, running around these rooms, looking out of these windows. I'll tell you something about this window. In the bathroom upstairs, there's a window, and for centuries, since at least the 1700s, famous visitors have been signing their names on the glass. Walter Scott, Charles Dickens, Thomas Hardy. Writers and artists and thinkers who came here stood in this room and left their names on the window of the room where Shakespeare was born. All right, we've seen where William Shakespeare was born, but now we are heading to the exact room where his mind was actually shaped. This is Shakespeare's schoolroom and guildhall. If you think your high school days were bad, this place will make you feel a whole lot better about your childhood. Think about it. How does a glover's son from a small town grow up to conquer the theatre world? The secret is waiting right up these stairs. Welcome to King's New School, where a 7-year-old William started in 1571. This wasn't a modern creative writing class. This was a 12-hour-a-day, Latin-only boot camp. Just look at this room. The exact benches where he sat. It feels incredibly atmospheric, but the reality was brutal. School started at 6 a.m. 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And the absolute worst part? They were strictly forbidden from speaking English and required to communicate entirely in Latin. Imagine getting detention because you forgot how to say, "Can I use the bathroom?" in a dead language. They actually have a resident Tudor schoolmaster here today who gives you a live lesson. It's brilliant, hilarious, and a little terrifying when he looks at you for an answer. Sitting here, you quickly realise that the rigid discipline and vocabulary Shakespeare absorbed on these exact creaking floorboards became the literal building blocks for his plays. 600 years old, and the school is still functional. Whatever they teach about perseverance in here, it's working. This building had a massive double life, and this is when it gets really interesting. Once the school let out, the downstairs guildhall served as the heart of the town government. Shakespeare's dad was actually the mayor, which gave a young William the ultimate hookup. Whenever travelling actors rode into the town to perform for the town council, They staged their plays right here on these ground floor floorboards. Shakespeare would have stood right here in the atmospheric space watching professional actors for the very first time. He didn't just read stories, he saw them come to life. Without this single building, we likely never get Romeo and Juliet or Macbeth. Stratford-upon-Avon is a real functioning town. It's not a museum. It's not a heritage site with a cordon around it. People live here. People work here. People are doing their shopping and going about their day inside buildings that have been here since 1500s. Walk down to the River Avon and everything changes. The pace slows. Swans on the waters. Rowing boats. The weir. Bancroft Gardens along the bank. And right there on the water, the Royal Shakespeare Theatre. The RSC has been performing here since 1961. Dame Judi Dench performed here. Patrick Stewart, Helen Mirren, Ralph Fiennes, Daniel Day-Lewis. The list of people who've stood on the stage and spoken Shakespeare's words in Shakespeare's town is astonishing. We walked the full length of the riverside, both banks, crossed the old tramway bridge and back. The town on one side, the theatre on the other. The river between them and the swans doing absolutely nothing that required their attention. New Place was Shakespeare's house, the one he bought in 1597 when he had made his fortune in London, the second largest house in Stratford at the time. In 1759, a later owner, a Reverend Francis Gastrell, became so irritated by the constant stream of visitors wanting to see Shakespeare's house that he demolished it, knocked it down entirely. He demolished Shakespeare's house because he was tired of tourists. History has opinions about this, but the gardens remain. The foundation outline is marked in the ground so you can see exactly where the house stood. There is a knot garden and an orchard and a mulberry tree grown from a cutting of the one Shakespeare himself is said to have planted. It's a surprisingly moving place, a garden where a house used to be. Anne Hathaway's cottage is about 2 miles from the town centre in the village of Shottery. You can take a bus or taxi, or drive there, or walk it through the fields. The word cottage slightly undersells it because it is a 12-room farmhouse, thatched roof, timber framed, has a garden so beautiful. The garden is planted with flowers and herbs that appear in Shakespeare's plays. Rosemary for remembrance, rue, violets, thyme. It's a garden built from his words, which is a beautiful thing to do with a garden. Inside, the original furniture is still there, including a bench, a settle, that Shakespeare is said to have sat on when he was courting Anne. Whether that is historically certain or a very good story passed down through generations, either way, it has been sitting in that room for 500 years, and people have been coming to see it for most of those years.
Hands are freezing up here, so they tended to have two sleeps. They would go to bed when the working spaces, social spaces. Wow. It's like sit there.
We sat in the garden for a long time. The cottage behind us, the orchard in front, the garden doing what English gardens do in the right seasons, being so completely and relentlessly beautiful that you forget to take photos because you are too busy just looking. Anne Hathaway's cottage is the kind of place that makes you glad you came. Holy Trinity Church is where William Shakespeare was baptised in April 1564 and where he was buried in April 1616. The same building, beginning and the end of his life marked in the same register, in the same church, 52 years apart. The church is a beautiful medieval English parish church on the bank of the Avon, approached through an avenue of lime trees that has been there for centuries. Inside, it is cool and quiet, with specific quality of very old English churches. The stone, the particular light, the sense of accumulated time pressed gently on everything. The grave is in the chancel, a simple stone slab in the floor. On it, an inscription that Shakespeare is widely believed to have written himself. Good friend, for Jesus' sake forbear to dig the dust enclosed here. Blessed be the man that spares these stones, and cursed be he that moves my bones. The warning has been respected. In 400 years, his grave has never been disturbed. The curse has held. Above the grave on the wall is the bust. This is as close as we can get to knowing what he looked like. It was installed by 1623, 7 years after his death. I stood at his grave for longer than I expected to, not because I'm particularly theatrical about literary history, but because there is something about standing at the actual end point of a life that makes you quiet. This particular life produced 37 plays, 154 sonnets, and words that are still being spoken 400 years later, in languages he never heard, in countries he never visited, by people he never could have imagined. That is worth standing quietly in front of. We chose to spend our first day of our ultimate birthday week in Stratford because Shakespeare wrote about love. We didn't know quite what we'd take from it. We left thinking about what it means to make something that outlasts you by 400 years. To write plays in your 30s and 40s that are still being performed when everyone you ever knew personally has been gone for centuries. Shakespeare did not set out to be immortal. He set out to write plays, to entertain people, to make money, to build a life. And he did all of those things. Then went home, retired, and died. His work stayed. His work outlasted everything. His house is gone, the globe burned down and was rebuilt. The world he lived in, unrecognizable. But his plays are still running. Thanks for coming with us this far. Like, comment, and share if you've learned a lesson or two, or three, or more. Follow for more of these if you enjoyed this episode, and we will see you in the next vlog of day 2 of our ultimate birthday week, right here.